Okay, hello everybody. We're here today. My name is Noelle
My name is Addie.
in our Fridays with Friends series as interns with Coast to Coast Legal Aid in the Senior Law Unit. Today we're here with Paco Velez, the president and CEO of Feeding South Florida, which is the largest hunger relief organization that serves Broward, Miami-Dade, Palm Beach, and Monroe counties. So, under his leadership, Feeding South Florida has worked with hundreds of community partners to provide food assistance, disaster relief, and programs that address the root causes of food insecurity. So, Paco here is a nationally recognized nonprofit leader and a passionate advocate for building stronger and healthier communities through collaboration and access to essential resources. And today, he's going to share some insights about the realities of food insecurity here in South Florida, the services available to people and families in need, and how community partnerships help us create lasting solutions. Hi, Paco. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you both doing?
Doing great. Thanks so much.
Yeah, doing well. Alrighty.
Good.
The first question that we have for you, for those who might not be familiar with your organization, Feeding South Florida, can you tell us a little bit more about it?
Happy to. So, at our core, Feeding South Florida is a food bank, which means we get food from those who have it and help get it onto the table of those who need it. So, those who have it would be farmers, distribution centers, manufacturers, retail outlets, anyone who has food to donate or excess food in their inventory. We talk to those individuals and we help get it onto the table of 1.7 million individuals from Palm Beach down to Monroe County. We work with a network of 300 different partner agencies to ensure that the food is distributed fairly and equitably across the four-county region and onto the table to those families who need assistance. We also offer wraparound services for those families, which we can get into in a bit.
That's wonderful. Wow. And very amazing the large geographic area that you all cover. It's truly incredible. So, we wanted to dig a little bit deeper because you mentioned it's a food banking system. So, what is the process or I guess the flow of food that you receive from these partner agencies? Like, can you describe to us the journey that the food itself takes a little bit more?
It's an interesting journey depending on what food you are. So let's take the growers here in South Florida, right? So in South Florida, we our farmers grow anywhere from cabbage to bell peppers, cucumbers, squash, zucchini, you name it. There are a lot of winter crops here in South Florida. So when we work with the farmers, that product can either come straight off the field on a refrigerated truck to Feeding South Florida and then out to our community, or it could be harvested for sale at local retail outlets like Publix, Winn-Dixie, Costco, places like that. And when it gets to the coal line, it looks a little different than what people see at the store. So if the cucumber is curly, usually you're not going to see that at the store. So we see that here at Feeding South Florida, and our families see it as well. Nothing wrong with the cucumber. It's just curly and or the zucchini is too big, something like that. Move over to the retail side. A lot of times we'll receive cans that are either dented or mislabeled. And by mislabeled, I mean someone will say, a manufacturer will say there's 30% less sodium, but in reality, there's only 27% less sodium. So
Mm.
we'll get those cans. All those kinds of cans and boxes of cereal and jars of pasta sauce go through our inspection process. So we see over 36,000 volunteers every single year here at Feeding South Florida, and those volunteers inspect all that product for safety and security to make sure that all of it is safe for distribution to our network and to our families. So it really depends on the food, but all of it comes in, goes through quality assurance, and then goes out to our community through our network of agencies or our own distributions.
Very interesting. I'm actually a student at NSU Law, so I've seen the work that the volunteers do and I've done it myself and it's a really cool way to get involved. But Addie, I know you had some more questions too.
Yeah. So when people hear the word hunger, I feel like they often have a certain image in mind. So what does food insecurity actually look like in our communities here in South Florida?
It's a very complicated question or answer. The question is easy. The response is going to be a little complicated. So I'll give you just a quick snippet from a conversation yesterday.
Hmm.
So one of our team members went into a store to get gas, right? So went to a gas station and was wearing their Feeding South Florida shirt, just like I am.
Mhm.
And someone went up to the to our team member and said, "Feeding South Florida, what is that, and what do you do?" And when we responded, we serve families who need assistance. The person didn't know, and the reason the person didn't know is because they've never needed assistance before.
Mhm.
However, come to find out after continued conversation with the person, her sister died, and the two children are now living with her. And so it's her child, and her sister's two children. So the family doubled practically overnight. And so now the sister is having problems feeding the entire family and is needing that assistance. So it could be as sad and complex as that to as simple as a person is making $100 a week and the cost of living is $125 a week, and there's absolutely no way someone can live, especially here in South Florida, because of that. And we see that a lot in our senior population because they are on a fixed income, and their social security or whatever benefits they're on do not increase at the same rate that inflation's increasing. So we find a lot of families, especially our senior population, which is one of the most vulnerable next to the children, we see them struggling and having to make this tough decisions. Do I keep a roof over my head? Do I put fuel in my car? Do I get medication, especially for our seniors, or do I put food on the table? And a lot of times, if you're taking medication, you need food and medication to go together, or else it just doesn't work very well.
Mhm.
So we see a lot of that, and that's a couple of the reasons for food insecurity here in South Florida.
Mhm.
Yeah, I know we definitely see a little bit of that, working here in the senior unit with low income seniors. So it's amazing what you guys
Mhm.
do for them, definitely.
Just the limitations of being on a fixed income, and like you mentioned at the beginning of your response, how complicated these problems are and how multifaceted food insecurity usually ends up being in our communities. You kind of touched on this a little bit in your response, but kind of mentioning how a lot of people don't envision themselves, being at a point in their lives where they are in need of food assistance. So, have you noticed, are there any specific life events that commonly lead families to seek help for the first time in your experience?
My gosh, there's a lot of those. I mean, one that quickly comes to mind, and I'm sure everybody's familiar with it, even though it feels like forever ago. COVID was a situation where, at the blink of an eye, someone was no longer working because you couldn't congregate. Restaurants closed, hotels closed, all these places closed, and people who were working there no longer had a job and no longer had a paycheck. And so immediately they needed assistance, and they did not know how to navigate some of these benefits. You look at any kind of especially in the construction or the farming world, there's not a lot of PTO in those worlds. So if it rains and someone doesn't work, they just lost a day's wage. And so if you're used to working 5 days a week and now you just work 3 days a week because it rained 2 days, you're going to be in a situation where you're going to have to make up those wages, and you have to go to a food bank or seek help from somewhere else. I mentioned the situation with someone dying in the household or someone leaving, and the grandparent has to take care of the grandchildren now. So there are a lot of situations where this happens, where people don't realize that they're now in a situation where they need help.
Yeah, I mean, so as you kind of just said, you guys provide services to a wide variety of communities, single parents, veterans, seniors, and housing issues are the number one problem addressed by us in the senior law unit. Can you speak about how you guys serve seniors and work with shelters and housing authorities to provide nutrition assistance to our former neighbors?
So there are a lot of things that Feeding South Florida does. First and foremost, we work with 300 different nonprofit organizations. A lot of them see the senior populations, especially if they're mobile, if they can get to the site, or they can walk across the street if they're in an area. For those who are not mobile or have ambulatory issues, Feeding South Florida does two things. We survey the seniors and determine, can they prepare meals on their own, or do they have to have prepared meals. Once we determine what the needs are in the household, Then we provide assistance, right? So we prepare meals and we provide 2 weeks worth of meals, 2 weeks worth of lunches to one of our senior community members, and we deliver those every 2 weeks to make sure that they have food on the table every day. If they can prepare meals, then we provide them with a grocery box, and they can prepare their own meals based on what their likes are, what they prefer eating versus something that they may not like. So there are a few different ways that we approach serving our senior population, whether they are ambulatory or if they're homebound.
That's so wonderful. And I think that's an incredibly important point to bring up when serving the senior population, those transportation issues, but also even physical movement issues. So, having different options for people who maybe we have individuals who can prepare their own meals and would prefer that versus those who need prepared meals. It's wonderful to see that there's still a level of choice and customization in the services that they're able to receive. And Addie touched on this a little bit, but I just wanted to give you the opportunity to speak to it a little bit more if you'd like. I feel like an important intersection we see here at Coast to Coast Legal Aid is people who are seniors and they rely on fixed incomes, and then those fixed incomes complicate their ability to secure stable housing. So we noticed on your website the terminology you use is you call them former neighbors. So people who are either in shelters or experiencing homelessness. We work with a ton of people who are experiencing housing issues that then lead to subsequent food insecurity. So are you able to talk a little bit more about collaboration, I guess specifically tailored to this former neighbors population? Because we have a lot of people we serve who are both seniors and former neighbors at the same time, if that's making sense.
So folks come in and we have our client case managers. So we manage every single family that comes in through the organization, and sometimes a family is a family of one, right? And so we work with, excuse me, we work with our partner organizations and internally with our case managers to determine what's going on in the household, right? Is it a grandparent head of household? Is it a single member household? Do they have pets? Are they a former veteran? Or a veteran, things like that. So when we run into situations where we see someone who's unhoused, we make referrals immediately. We start calling our partners, but also when we prepare a grocery box or a grocery bag, or allow them access to our pantry where they go in and shop for whatever they need,
Mm-hmm.
we are specific on what we provide them, right? It has to be things that cannot be heated. We want to make sure that it's popped up. We want to make sure that it's something that they don't have to prepare, that they can eat it straight without having any issues. We heat up meals here, and they can have the meal here if they so choose. So there are a few things that we do, but our biggest piece is making sure that we refer them to an organization and try to get them in somewhere so they don't have to spend another night in the street or on their car or on the bus or somewhere else.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing a little bit more about that and just also for speaking briefly to your intake and case management process. I think people feel really supported when they have that individualized kind of support and conversation that they can have with someone.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So, if somebody is struggling and they need food assistance, what's the first step that they should take to get help from you guys?
A couple of different ways to do that is, first and foremost, you can go to our website, feedingsouthflorida.org. There you'll find an agency locator. You type in your zip code and narrow down the distance, and you'll find partners in your area that to provide food assistance, and call them and let them know that you're wanting to take advantage of the benefit. The other way is to give us a call, 954-518-1818, and let us know what your needs are, and we can walk you through that process, whether it's a referral to a pantry in your area or coming here or home delivery, depending on what's going on. And the other part is, if you live in the area, just walk in and let us know how we can help. And we're here honestly Monday through Friday, 8 to 8 p.m., 8 a.m. to 8 p.m.,
Mm.
and then Saturday and Sunday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. So we're here to serve our community, which is why we're open 7 days a week, to make sure that folks have access to food when they need it.
That's great. That's really great. And we'll be sure to include all the relevant information that we can in the description of this video for anyone who might be interested. You shared that really interesting story, or I guess impactful story, of one of your colleagues' experiences of just interacting with someone on the fly in the community who they just so happen to be in that difficult situation and looking for that kind of support. Do you have any other stories that you'd be willing to share? Maybe success stories or really impactful stories of individuals that Feeding South Florida has been able to serve and assist, and the impact that you've had on their lives?
So there are a lot of stories. I was eating at a restaurant for lunch one day, and the server saw my shirt and said, um, "I can't describe what you guys did for me and my granddaughter. She was had to take care of her granddaughter because her daughter was left or sick. I'm not sure what happened, but she started crying there in the restaurant. And this didn't just happen there. This also happened at a grocery store where I went. And so families are truly in need. And what's really heartbreaking is so many individuals are able to access food at a grocery store and don't think twice about it.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas you see 1.7 million people here in South Florida, just in these four counties, who just by getting food, just by having something to eat, break out in tears, and that shouldn't have to happen. That's not the United States. That's not the country that we should be living in. We should be living in a place where everyone has access to food. And so that's what we provide. We have workforce training programs, um, both in the culinary space as well as the warehouse space. And we've had incredible success with not only teaching folks, but also placing individuals in jobs, and not just placing those individuals in jobs, but helping them stay employed, right? It's one thing to get a job, it's another one to stay in the job.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a 100% placement rate. And we also have folks that we follow those individuals for a year after they've graduated our program. Some of them have been promoted. Some of them have started their own business, especially in the catering world. So there are a lot of success stories, and it just takes an organization or an individual to listen. And as you mentioned earlier, case management to provide that structure. And that's what we're doing here at Feeding South Florida is we're providing a point system for folks to access, and it acts as a budget for our pantry. So let's say you start off with 10 points. If you go through nutrition education, you're going to get another 5 points or another 10 points. If you go through financial literacy, you're going to get another 5 points or 10 points. If you go through these different, you're in school, right? So if you have
Yeah.
the syllabus in front of you
Yeah.
and you do all this, you are going to graduate in your major and a minor and potentially, go take your LSAT. So there's a structure in place. And not only is there a structure that people can follow, that's going to make it easy for them to achieve their goals, but they have someone who's supportive and caring and is going to follow up and make sure that they are meeting those goals so they can get additional points, but more importantly, so they can get to a place of independence.
Wow.
Absolutely. That's such a unique
Yeah.
program, I think, and to structure it in that way and provide that clarity and that pathway is just life-changing for people.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Kind of bouncing off of that and just kind of talking about accessibility and there are probably, I can imagine, a lot of people who assume that maybe, I'm not low income enough or like I won't qualify. Can you tell us a little bit more about who is actually eligible to receive services from you guys?
So we don't look at necessarily the income, even though it's about 185 to 200% of the federal poverty line. So to give you a better understanding, the poverty line is in and around $15,000 per person, right?
Hmm.
So let's say 200 percent of the federal poverty line, you're looking at $30,000 a year would is falls to 200% of the federal poverty line, which if you're making $30,000 in South Florida, you're going to be hurting, right? And that's 200%. That's not even at the base.
Hmm.
So so we look at that, but we also look at what's going on in the household,
Hmm.
right? Do people have an emergency situation that requires them to come in temporarily? right? Do they have to come in for 3 months, 6 months, or even a year? And if so, how do we help them navigate, or how do we help them through that temporary issue? And so, to give you an example, let's take a hurricane. Hurricane comes in, blows through. Now you have to have this major repair on the house, and so you take out a loan, or you whatever you have to do. So now you have this additional expense that you weren't expecting, and now you have to make a choice, right? So you have emergency repair on the house, but the little bit more serious is an emergency repair on a family member, right? Someone goes into the hospital for something, and now you have an increased medical bill. And
Mm.
so these situations are going to create an instance where someone's going to need help. And that's where we come in, and our case management, what's going on, how can we help? Okay, it's a temporary thing. Let us help you through this process. Let us help you save money. Let us help you do invest money, things like that. So it really depends on what's going on. So if someone's making 300% of the federal poverty line, but they have a major situation in their home, like a house payment, or not a payment, but something happens to the house, or an emergency medical payment, then we're going to step in and help them as best we can to get them out, so they don't become worse off and
Hmm.
then ultimately end up unhoused.
Oh wow,
Hmm.
so things are a little bit more holistic. Amazing.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's great that you're able to be flexible with your eligibility requirements to accommodate those unanticipated situations, because I think those are super common scenarios, as you mentioned, in the realm of nutrition assistance. So for those who do want to get involved, whether that be by receiving services or those who might be interested in volunteering, is there a way for them to keep up to date with events that you're hosting or opportunities to come by? Like, what's the best way to stay in touch with Feeding South Florida?
The best way to stay in touch is to go online, feedingsouthflorida.org, subscribe to our newsletter, and you'll be up to date on the happenings at Feeding South Florida. Another great way is to go to our social media pages. We have Facebook, Instagram. I
Hmm.
don't have any of them, so I'm struggling with this. Um, I think we have TikTok now, but that's not a great place to to find out about events. I think they just do random stuff with our team,
Hmm.
um, and there's just a lot of ways to get involved. You can go on our website and volunteer. You can go to our website, sign up for any event that's going on. The banner page is a great place to see what's going on. But I encourage folks to sign up for our newsletter and follow us on social media.
Wonderful. We'll be sure to include all that information as well. Whatever platforms you're on, we'll put them down in the description. But thanks for sharing all that, Paco.
Yes, yes. Thank you so, so much, Paco. This has been wonderful and so informative. So thank you for taking the time to speak with us today and, sharing your insight into the important work that Feeding South Florida is doing to fight hunger in our communities. If you'd like to learn more about Feeding South Florida and accessing their services, like we said, we're including all their contact information in the description below. Thank you so much, Paco.
Thanks for watching, everybody. Like and subscribe, and have a great day. This has been Fridays with Friends with Coast to Coast Legal Aid.
Thank you.
Thank you.